Welcome back. I'm here with Loren Merkle and Haley Gutchenrider. We're talking about RMDs, some new changes because of Secure Act 2.0. The penalties are actually decreasing for not taking your RMD.
Which is a really important point because countless times on this show we've talked about these steep penalties if you don't take your RMDs up to the tune of 50%. So Haley, take your board example as a prime example. That involves multiple parts of a piece of legislation. Some people know you don't have to take your RMD within the first year. You can defer it till up to April of next year. But not everybody knows you have to take two in that next year if you do that. So if you take the one next year, you don't take two, now you're penalized 50% of the RMD that you missed. So if your RMD was $10,000, 50% of that is a $5,000 penalty, plus you still have to take the $10,000 out. So with the Secure Act 2.0, that penalty was decreased from 50% all the way down to 25%. So instead of the $5,000 penalty, it's $2,500 penalty in that example. But also, if you take it out within the correction window, it'll decrease further all the way down to 10%. So a big relief as far as that penalty is concerned. And there's a lot that goes into what a correction window is, but generally think, about 2 years is the time frame that you have to self-correct your mistake, take the distribution, and then it's considered a 10% penalty.
And I think probably what lawmakers, the IRS, they're trying to say, hey, just take your RMD because we want the tax money. So go ahead and take it out.
It's like you're thinking just like the IRS.
Oh, don't say that.
Oh, I know. I know, but that's true. I mean, what they want is people to self-report and actually take that distribution so they can generate that tax revenue on it. There's a lot of people who don't take it mistakenly, but for whatever reason, the IRS doesn't necessarily catch them. So this is a way they're encouraging people to say, hey, take your RMD. If you forget about it or make a mistake, no worry. Take it out within the correction window. It's a less severe penalty.
Another change in the Secure Act 2.0, Haley, has to do with Roth 401ks.
Yeah, so if you're not working and you still have a Roth 401k at your old employer plan, currently you have to take an RMD from that. And why most people don't like that is because it's mandating you to take a distribution from this Roth side. Now you're not going to owe any income taxes on it, but you would rather leave that money in underneath that Roth umbrella. But starting in 2024, they're no longer going to require those RMDs from the Roth 401k.
And just a little bit more control, right? Anytime that you decide when you take your money, how you take your money, that gives you a little more control in retirement.
Yeah, that's what it's about, especially when we're talking about probably what is your most important retirement asset, which is your Roth account. So if you don't have to take a distribution from your Roth 401k plan and you can continue to allow that money to grow tax-free, that is absolutely powerful when we're talking about the long-term nature of your plan. So having more control over those distributions is the big benefit.
And as we talk about RMDs, I think we probably should mention, for some people, they're already going to take their RMD, whether they're 72 or whenever they can get to it, 59 and a half, because they need it for retirement income. But for some people, it's a tax burden, so everybody's situation is a little bit different.
Which is also adds to the complexity of talking to people, because you might be talking, the RMD might be meaningful to you, but you're talking to your neighbors or or your siblings, and they're saying, what do you mean about this RMD stuff? I don't have to do that, because they don't have to, because they're already meeting their required distribution, and that can add to some confusion and mistakes also.
Okay, let's keep talking about decisions in your 70s. Haley, if you haven't turned on Social Security at 70, you might as well go ahead.
You might as well turn it on, because your benefit stops growing after age 70. So if you're still working, your benefit could go a little bit higher because Social Security is based off the last 35 highest wage earning years. But if you're still working, you might as well take that benefit, because there's no longer an earnings limit. That actually goes away at your full retirement age. So if you can collect a paycheck and collect Social Security income, double whammy, and it's better for your income plan.
Okay, now to long-term care. Not the fun part of retirement planning, but the latest statistics show that someone turning 65 today has almost a 70% chance of needing some type of long-term care. Women could, on average, need it for 3.7 years, men for 2.2 years. So as retirement planners, it's part of your role to say, hey, let's talk about this.
Which is why long-term care is really important to talk about. And if we start working with you at 58 or 62 or 75, that very first plan that we create, we do implement or build out a long-term care plan. Now, if you're 62, you may not actually need long-term care for 10, 15, 20 years, but it's important for you to understand in the event you need long-term care down the road, how are you going to pay for it to get the care that you deserve? If you're married, your spouse is really concerned about what does their retirement look like after paying for all that expense of long-term care, and then maybe you pass away. What does that look like for their spouse? So it adds to the confidence of the other decisions you have to make from an income standpoint, an investment standpoint, a legacy plan standpoint. It impacts your confidence knowing you have that long-term care expense counted for within your overall plan, regardless of what age you are.
And you alluded to this earlier, but women do make up the majority of long-term care facilities. So this is often a fear that I hear in our Women in Retirement class that I teach. And so I love when we sit down with a family and we really illustrate these grand costs to long-term care, and then we can show them what is this going to look like to your retirement plan, and how is your retirement going to look like if your husband has to go into a care facility for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, that's a big fact. If you go to any long-term care facility and you look at the gender who is in that, women dominate people who are in the long-term care facilities, because typically they are going to outlive men, which is why women should be so concerned about protecting the rest of their retirement and how are they going to afford long-term care in the event that they need it.
And illustrating this can also really easily identify, how do I want to offset this risk? I mean, offsetting risk could just be deciding I don't want to do anything about it, or they could go to a long-term care policy, or they could use a life insurance hybrid. There's so many options, but at least seeing how this impacts their plan, they can decide with confidence, how much of this risk do I want to offset?
And I think it's worth talking about the numbers, because you do help people of all kind of quote-unquote portfolio sizes build this in, regardless of the fact that the national average for home health aid in 2021, $5,000 a month, an assisted living facility, you're looking at $4,500 a month, and a private room, $9,000 a month. That's the national average. So we know that this is expensive, but also to have it built in has to really give people a peace of mind.
Thank you for watching this clip of Retiring Today, and don't forget to subscribe. If you have questions about your retirement plan, take advantage of the complimentary 15-minute retirement checkup phone call.